Hello, everybody. Welcome on this beautiful spring Tuesday. Thanks, everybody, for joining in for a session on how to use AI to understand what the employees are really saying. So, we want to surface what matters, identify issues early, and understand the employee experience better than we can with surveys alone. And we're going to talk about what that means from an AI perspective and in general. We're going to talk about some prompts and cool stuff like that. But while people are joining in, we are here live all together, all 42 and counting. So love to see in the chat where people are calling in from, what industry are you in? And we're going to do some polls along the way. And if you have any questions or comments, please chime into the chat. We have people on call ready to bubble up your questions to me or answer them on the spot in the chat, or just to share comments and your experience. In fact, if you want to, I think we're doing a survey on surveys, so we'll get to there in a second. But love to see where people are calling in from. I'm here again, as you may know, in Seattle, as I normally am. I actually have my home office. I took a picture of my home office right here, and I actually use it as a virtual background. Like last February, I was in Spain, and I did a couple webinars from Spain. And I just use my virtual background. So it's kind of fun to always be in your home office, so to speak. But awesome seeing some people coming in from Boston, Toronto, Charlotte. I love it. I hope people from Charlotte. That's cool. Minneapolis, what's up? Man, let's go. Love all the people connecting and coming in from all over the country. If you want to share what industry you're in, I love to always talk about specific industries kind of in the conversation. Denver, beautiful. We had our team gathering there last time in Denver, a lot of fun. Love Meow Wolf at Denver. And California, of course, Bay Area. That's where we got our start, our company recognized. So yeah, it's a good time to just jump into it. So, who am I? I'm Alex Grandy. I'm the CEO, co-founder of Recognize. I was in San Francisco, and I said to my colleague at the time, I want companies to have a culture of appreciation. I want to motivate the workplace beyond just the simple sticks and carrots. I want to be able to provide a badging interface to categorize the company values, to incentivize the positive behaviors, and to create a record of that. And what's been interesting about using now AI is now when you create those recognitions, this structured data, you can then utilize it so much more utilizing AI. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. But that's what I'm passionate about is company culture, organizational psychology. I have a background in psychology, and I love to connect. So if you're on LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn. You can scan the QR code. We'll give you a chance at the end, and my email there is on the screen. So before we dive into the deep end on HR data and things like that, I want to, maybe demystify some of the AI buzzwords that have been floating around. What does it mean, LLM? What is Copilot? And so maybe some of this is going to be a little bit of a review. We're going to do 2 slides on terminology, AI terminology, and then we'll get into some practical things we can do. So, an LLM, you can think of it as like the brain, right? And like something like Copilot is the assistant sitting on top of that, right? So it's like an assistant that allows you to connect to that. When you chat, right, you're able to connect with this large language model, as it's called, an LLM. And we don't really need to know much about that. And honestly, I don't think the people who are creating it know much about what it is to begin with anyway, or how it works. But that Copilot, that Claude, that ChatGPT is your kind of interface. It's the UI to connect to that LLM, right? Agents, on the other hand, are given a goal and can run on their own accord to complete a multi-step task. So agents, we'll talk a little bit more about those. So, agents is something that maybe is on your computer. It has access to a folder, so it can sort or summarize documents, or maybe it lives inside of a browser tab. So I have a friend who actually used an agent, I think the complexity one, compute, to actually negotiate with a large TV provider TV and telecom provider to negotiate on a lower rate. And the agent did it on behalf of him. It first talked to to its agent, to the big company's agent, and then it actually started talking to the real person over chat and negotiate a lower rate. So this is happening now. Now you also want to know about MCP. I think that's something else to know about. And again, we don't need to remember that it's called Model Context Protocol unless you want to sound smart in a meeting. But we just got to think about an MCP is basically like a USB cable for AI, right? Instead of engineers writing custom code to connect an AI to, let's say, Workday, or maybe for ServiceNow, or my app Recognize, an MCP provides one standard connection so that your AI can securely talk to other data sources. So if you've gone into Claude and used Claude Connects and being able to connect into another thing, like I connected to our sales data and I'm able to summarize the last 10 sales calls, and it's able to do that for me, right? And this is not anything too hard to do, right? It just click and go. So you probably also heard about OpenClaw. It's an open source AI agent that has absolutely blown up. It's becoming kind of the fastest growing. I think it is the fastest growing projects in GitHub history. And people can use it from either WhatsApp or Slack to run these tasks, to summarize your emails. You can even have it control your own phone by shadowing your phone on your computer. But OpenClaw isn't the only player in town. If you want browser automation, you've got other things like Barbean. There's a bunch of things called Thunderbit or Firecrawl to be able to crawl web pages. There's something called NanoClaw, which is like OpenClaw, but much smaller and more secure. And a lot of this has to do with security as well. We're going to talk more about that. So there's a lot of things out there that you don't necessarily need to be using. Lindy is a really interesting one. Check it out. Lindy, I think Lindy AI. Just Google it. Very interesting, the things they can be doing. And I know companies have a lot of concerns around these types of things from security. We're going to talk about that a little more. But if now Apple has a $500 MacBook, right? You can get your own MacBook. You can put Lindy on it, and it can start helping you. You can ask it to things like summarize my text messages. You know what I mean? Like when am I having dinner with my parents? Right. And it can just read your text messages and tell you these types of things. Right. We need these things, especially we're inundated with messages. We're inundated with Gmail. We need AI to help us with these things. But again, you may not be using, Cursor or Microsoft Code. And I encourage anyone to try it out. It's easier than ever to write code with AI, but you may not need to use it, but it's good to at least know about it and know what's out there. But we have a poll right now. I am curious. Our first poll of the session. I think I may have made the polls in the wrong order. Well, let's go ahead and answer anyway. We'll get to recognition later on, so it will be relevant then. But are you utilizing your recognition data for your recognition program? Or do you not have a program at all? So this would be an employee recognition rewards program. It is relevant to this conversation. And we'll get to it in a second. And it ties into survey fatigue, actually. Everything leads together. But I am curious results. We'll go ahead and pull it up, Rue. What do people say? Do you have a recognition program? If you do, how are you analyzing the data from it? Awesome. So yeah, very few people. Hey, from the 6%, the two of you guys are super rocking. And we'll talk more about how we can start doing that now with your recognition program without having to buy more software or anything like that. But for the 35% of you, let's reach out and talk later. And for those who don't have a program, maybe we'll convince you why that's important in this session. But let's keep going. I want to talk about the reality of survey fatigue. So our people are burned out by them, let's be honest. When we send out an annual survey, when we only get 30 or 40% response rate, you have to ask yourself, whose voices are we actually hearing? And the data shows that 47% of employees feel pressured to hold back their honest opinions. Why is that? Well, it's because I think sometimes there's an action gap, and there's no blame game here, but just simply that 27% of people report believing that HR will actually take meaningful action on their feedback. And when feedback goes into a black hole, trust drops, people stop participating, and we have to change the game around that. And look, it's hard to change everything. And I think if we even just change one thing per survey, we're doing a good job. That may not be the perception of the person who's completing that survey, right? So what can we do? So I'm not saying we kill the survey. I just think that we need to supplement it with passive listening. So passive data is the digital exhaust we're leaving behind every day that we're not capturing from a structured data perspective. So this is things like Teams messages, Slack messages, calendar overlaps. It doesn't require any effort by your employees, right? And surprisingly, people are actually open to this idea of passive listening. I'm not talking about keystrokes. I'm not talking about mouse cursor movement, right? I'm talking about, again, team messages, calendar overlaps, things that recognition data. So research shows that 72% of employees are totally comfortable with us as employers looking at passive system data to improve their experience, right? As long as we're being transparent and we show that we're not showing, we're not looking at per person, we're looking at a cohort of people. We're caring about trends, not getting people in trouble. And then this can give us the what is happening, while surveys can help us still tell us why, right? And when we look at passive data, we actually can look at leading indicators as well. So, and if your company, I know a lot of companies are using Microsoft, so I'm going to talk a lot about the Microsoft. This is just an example of what you can do as Microsoft companies, but you can supplement Microsoft with some other system that you're using, like Claude or whatever. So, but if your company is using Microsoft 365, like really, you just have to put together more tools, but you are sitting on a gold mine of data, right? You already have infrastructure of what I'm already talking about. So you want to use Viva Insights. You can it automatically aggregates a lot of this de-identified collaboration data, like chats, like emails, like calendars, right? And this will protect your employees' privacy. Then you can layer in the Copilot, Microsoft Copilot on top of it, which is probably already approved by your company, right? A lot of these AIs aren't approved yet, but Copilot often is from what I've seen. So suddenly, instead of waiting a month for a data analysis to build you a spreadsheet, you on the HR team or the communications team or whatever team you're on can literally just ask Copilot questions, just normal English, and get real-time insights on how your workforce is collaborating. Okay, so here is what gets incredibly practical with this. So you can spot burnout before it even happens, right? There's this idea of productivity paranoia. Microsoft found that 87% of employees say that they feel they're being highly productive, but then only 12% of leaders actually believe them. And so that's a massive trust gap that they found at Microsoft. So instead of guessing, we can look at communication metadata. We can see a team consistently messaging late at night, or a key player suddenly withdrawing from public channels, or sending only direct messages. Certain types of things like this can be indicators of yellow or red flags for burnout or possible turnover. Or maybe people they used to be sending emojiing a lot of positive messages in Teams, for instance, and now they're not. They're more withdrawn, and we want to look for those trends in the data using the tools we already have. And now when you send a survey, what happens is all those open-ended questions. In the past, you'd have an HR rep going through all these comments and trying to categorize them, trying to find word clouds. Remember word clouds? But now we have tools like Copilot, inside of Viva Glint, or using Recognize for surveys. And you can summarize now thousands of employee comments in a few seconds. So the AI can be used in the front end and the back end of the listening process. It can automatically extract themes and spot outliers. It can map the sentiments. And it's all based off of the prompt that you come together. And you can oftentimes have multiple kinds of conversation with it the first couple of times, and then ask the AI, Copilot or whatever, hey, give me the optimal prompt I can use next time, right? To get the same result. And so then it can give back the prompt, and then you can save that prompt, right, into Copilot to be used later, right? So you don't have to do it every time. And maybe even having a directory, I suggest in your knowledge base, wherever that is, maybe it's inside SharePoint or in Confluence or Notion, you have those prompts listed and categorized. So people can, again, we can all do the same process. We're all using the same tools, so we can connect the same processes together. And so, yeah, so this can totally remove the administrative bottleneck. So you can spend more time actually fixing the problems than just doing busy work, reading comments. Okay, so let's see here. 1 second, I'm just gonna make sure. Yeah, so here are a few prompts you can look at here to use directly, right? So I'm not gonna read them, but you can, yeah, take a screenshot. Yes, we'll be sending the deck at the end. Again, you can ask these kinds of big questions. Just try to see what happens. I actually asked my CTO, hey, do you think I can do X with this AI tool that we're using? And he said, honestly, it's a brave new world. Just try it and see what happens. And I did, and it worked. It was incredible. The things we can do, the calculators that we can build, the prompts that we can do. Yes, if you say something silly like, how many D's are in Google, and it says there's 3 D's in Google. Like, there's some really funny stuff online of AI just being completely ridiculous. But in other ways, it's just absolutely incredible. And I think the way it's incredible is by summarizing data. So if you're here to listen to your employees, there's no better time than ever in our entire existence as humans to be connecting with and understanding employee data, because we now have a all-knowing tool to summarize it. So now I want to look beyond the formal org chart for a moment. I know we have an org chart, right? But we always kind of have a sense there's something else. There's some other kind of layer of people who have influence. So there's this idea of organizational network analysis, or ONA, and this maps how people actually get work done, who is getting work done. So it shows you in informal relationships in the company, right? So you all know that one person who you go to it for advice, right? That key employer, that key player in your organization, that all-knowing staff member, right? They may not be a manager, right? So the ONA actually helps us discover and unlock those hidden leaders and helping those bridging individuals, right? We want to connect people with the right people who have the right skills and elevate those employees. And this can really help combat burnout, of those key players, is by giving them different responsibilities. Oftentimes key players, they burn out not necessarily because they're given too much, because they're given too little. So we want to use an ONA to discover those people, and we can do that through using AI prompts. This was the moment we're going to do the recognition poll. My bad. So, but we might as well do a poll. So, Brew, let's do the next poll, and then we'll talk about how we can use recognition data, because it's really, really interesting. Yeah, we are curious about privacy, and we are going to get to that later on. But I'm curious, where are you at with your concerns around AI privacy in the organization? How worried are you about people putting in sensitive information into an AI? All right, let's pull the results. Let's see what people said. Yeah, look at that across the board. Really interesting. Hmm. And Ru, I didn't get a screenshot of the last poll. I'd love to get a copy of that last poll. That was really interesting. I always try to take screenshots and share this with the rest of the team, and actually use these polls for future webinars too. But look at that, we have um, just really across the board between somewhat worried and extremely worried. And it's interesting, people are more leaning towards the somewhat worried. But yeah, I think there is once it gets in there, we don't know. I think that's why it's good to be paying for an LLM that does not use your data for training. We use for sensitive information, and we can use Gemini because that's within our subscription with Google. I know a lot of companies use Copilot because of that. So if you set up the right processes, and we'll talk more about that later on, you can be more than somewhat worried or not worried. But if you don't have those policies in place, you don't have that training in place, something kind of marrying the extremely worried with the peer recognition. There's a very large company, you can Google it to look it up. A very large tech company wanted to incentivize AI usage. And so they set up leaderboards. So, with Recognize, we have leaderboards as well to incentivize the values of the organization. But they set up leaderboards to gamify, create a gamification strategy around AI. Well, if you don't incentivize the right things, you don't have the right training, things like that can backfire. And supposedly they spent $500 million in a month on tokens on AI. and that was, because everyone was just, using their LLM of choice to, look up, when is Memorial Day, and all these benign tasks just to get themselves up on the leaderboard. So we have to be careful what we incentivize. But when you incorporate, when you build intrinsic motivation, you work with a team like Recognize that can help you kind of navigate and steer that ship on a recognition program. If you're of the 35% that doesn't have one, but would like to learn more, having a recognition program, and I'm going to come back to the statistical findings, but basically your recognition program, and this is what we do, is, here it is in Microsoft Teams, but it can be inside Slack, it's on your phone, it's in text messages for people who have frontline workers. But Recognize is basically a structured data source of all of the incredible moments around the values of your company. So you can create any value you want, and then people can recognize each other from peer perspective, and it can be incredible. I piped in the last 4 years of recognitions of one of my employees and presented them in a meeting yesterday to show, for this person's 4-year anniversary, look at all of what they've done in the last 4 years. And we were able to bubble up things that happened literally 4 years ago that we all forgot about, but it was recorded in all the great work that she has done in the recognitions that she's sent and received. And so it was really just heartfelt discussion that was only possible because AI read the recognition data that's structured and Recognize. And then, of course, you can then go redeem points and buy things like parking, a VIP parking pass if that's what you want to offer, or live sporting events, concerts, swag, and Amazon. And we're able to provide all of these things along with surveys, gamification, and beyond. And we have a strategy to help make it so that it's really meaningful. But anyway, if you already have a recognition program, even in spreadsheets, it's totally fine. But we want to keep that data structured, tied into an LLM. And it's really just interesting to see that 55% of people just want to receive that recognition, that praise, and that 40% they want recognition from their peers. I think it's really meaningful. And so if you don't do a recognition program, it's a strategic asset. Again, now more than ever, because you can use it in a recognition. You can use a recognition program, that data, in that passive listening, and that can be combined in conjunction with that calendar data and the Teams or Slack data. And when you connect that into Copilot using a Microsoft Graph connector, your AI becomes even more context aware, right? A manager can now ask Copilot about a team's health, and AI can help warn, hey, John is generating massive cross-functional department wins, right? But they're not being recognized, right? Or maybe employee is lacking in some ways, but they're being incentivized through recognition, but it's not leading to higher productivity, right? And so you can actually step in and save top talent or correct things where they're headed before it becomes an issue. So, once that data is hooked in, you can query it like talking to a colleague, right? You can ask the Copilot or Claude or whatever based off of recognition data, who in engineering is getting the most praise from sales? What teams are the biggest cross collaboration? Find me the highly connected employees who haven't been promoted in 2 years, right? Who's a star employee? They haven't been promoted, right? Connecting Workday, Recognize, Microsoft. You just become instantly more powerful through now this easy mechanism of just using English to connect. English is now the programming language, and we all know English, so now we all know how to program, which is pretty amazing. And here's a channel that I think a lot of us ignore on the HR team, HR side, is that we ignore those support tickets or those IT tickets, right? And those ticketing systems are a frustration log, to be blunt. So we need to track the total resolution time, for instance. We need to see if new hires are putting in more tickets because they're locked out of their software. And does it take 2 weeks to resolve? Is that destroying the onboarding experience? We're all experience designers for our employees, for our customers. We're creating an experience. This webinar, I'm creating an experience for you in this webinar. So we want to create a great experience for our employees, and we can use Copilot to analyze those ticket trends to show us exactly where internal processes are slowing down, where is there friction that doesn't need to be. So insights mean nothing without action. So again, we can use Copilot to help us execute. We can say things like draft an email to the department heads summarizing our top 3 survey concerns and outline a plan to reduce team overload, right? Help me be more empathetic, help me connect more people. Of course, I would recommend, editing and scrubbing. The best people are definitely not just taking what comes out of AI and then pasting it, right? We have to be continuing to use critical thought every step of the way. We're using critical thought in using AI. And I talked to my team yesterday about the environmental impact of AI. Again, when you're using AI to look up Memorial Day weekend or do a simple math equation that you could do in a calculator, this is not good usages of AI. When you need to search 20 different websites, right? Or if you need to create a presentation like this presentation you're looking at, which is, yes, it's the content has been thoroughly researched, but I made this in Gamma. I made this in a presentation tool that helps takes your outline, takes your notes, creates a presentation. I told my friend who was doing her dissertation about this tool Gamma that I'm using right here, and she put her thesis into it, and then created the presentation, and then she tweaked it. Obviously, it's to tweak it, and then the professors said it was the best presentation that they saw. Right. So it's not about just doing things to get it done with. It's use critical thought, but you don't need to be hyper productive. You just want to be doing higher quality work. That's how I think about how to use AI. And here's some prompts to do that. Awesome. So as we all roll out AI, we have to make sure we aren't just adding noise. Microsoft actually has a specific Copilot impact survey templates that are built right into Viva Pulse and Viva Glen. So if you're using those, check them out. I'm sure you can generate also survey questions and then pipe that into other tools as well, other survey tools using. But if you're already using Microsoft, check it out. And then because we need to be actively asking our employees if these AI tools are actually saving them time, reducing their workload, or improving the quality of their work. So we want to have that kind of information from a survey perspective. So put that into your next survey. We want to measure the ROI of AI itself. And because if we're not, then I don't think it's AI. I think it's how we're using it, to be honest. So I talked about privacy. I think it's the elephant in the room. I know as across the board, people were concerned about it, but I think it's something that we definitely need to have a conversation about. So when we feed our chat, our survey data into AI, we can definitely keep it safe. If you're using enterprise tools like Azure AI Foundry, it has automated PII detection built in, which means that the AI can actually read the text to analyze its sentiment with automatically having masked the names, phone numbers, information about those employees. All right, so then you're getting high level trends without exposing individual employees. I think we have one more poll. I can't remember which one it's going to be, but I am curious to see what people have to say. So let's pull the poll up. Rue, I think it's our second to last poll. We have one more, but it's more of a how did I do poll at the end. So please stay at the end to learn more about Recognize, also and tell me how I did here. But so I'm curious, are you doing passive listening? Are you doing any kind of passive listening now? No, not interested. No, but I do want to get help from a vendor to do passive listening, maybe an agency. Yes, we're doing it on our own, and yes, we're doing passive listening, and we're using some kind of vendor to help us facilitate that. I guess doing it on a vendor would be like maybe a specific software that you're using to do that. If you're just kind of you're connecting it all together using Microsoft, I would say that would be more like doing it on your own, or maybe like a Zapier or something like that, where you're connecting different tools together. I would consider that doing it on your own for the passive listening. But let's go up and pull the results. Awesome. Yeah, so at 42%, doing passive listening, that's great. I love seeing all the people actually already there doing the good work. And then about half of you, or about, yeah, let's see, 32, 40, about the same, actually, yeah, same percentage of people not doing passive listening, with 16% looking to get some help from a vendor. And then, yes, another 16% are doing it. So majority of you are doing something. That's great. That's awesome to see. Yeah, interesting across the board results there. So again, around trust and access and ethical boundaries, when we're setting up these systems, you should have something called user delegated access. This ensures that the employee asks an AI question, it only receives specific data that's specific to that employee, right? That person who sees it. You can't just, if you don't have full pay transparency, some companies do, but if you don't, you shouldn't be able to, ask the system someone's pay, right? For instance, or if someone has a private birthday, I know people, for religious reasons, also personal private reasons, you shouldn't be able to ask, how old is somebody, for instance. So you should test those things, make sure that they're working properly with your LLMs. And also just be clear that you care about those things, and also that people can have privacy in using it, right? That you want people to feel safe and secure when using this. Then they're just going to be more authentic and they're going to be more productive. So put that into your policy. If you're building custom agents, so again, that's things that do multiple tasks. Things like answering policy questions, you can have a chatbot for that. You can't afford to have hallucinations, so definitely we can be testing to see if things are answering correctly. I have a friend has been working at Google for so long, and what she does is she's quality assurance for their LLM, and she's been there for 10 years. So that's how long they've been working on this. So you want to be able to test those things internally as well. That's what The Economist talks about how important it is, the publication Economist, to be hiring interns, be hiring out of college grads, right? Because you can elevate them with AI to make them so much more effective. That's why I think it's ridiculous, this idea that, yes, menial tasks that interns and people out of college used to do are being automated. That doesn't mean not hire those people. That means that you can actually hire people for less to do more meaningful work, which is incredible. And you can have them do things like testing your LLMs. And also that I want to highlight that Copilot Studio actually has a built-in evaluation tool to run automated tests as well. And you can set it to require an exact match as well. If someone asks, is Boxing Day a paid holiday? You can have an exact definition of what that means based off your employee handbook. So that's something that you can have, again, your team look into completing. I do see a question from Karen. I just want to read it out loud just to see what we have to say. How would the system flag a private employee interaction if they're using the organization's communication system? That is a very good question. I do not have the answer off the top of my head, but we'll definitely come back to Karen on that question once I can think more about it outside the scope of the presentation. I do have a number of more slides to get to. I have, I think, just one more, but we'll come back to, we'll circle back to your question. Just want to get back to just one more slide, and then we'll talk about next steps. Love to do the poll of how we're doing. But while you're doing the poll, how we did, I just want to touch on the future of an intelligent HR team. So again, I love The Economist. They had a great article a number of months ago about how HR is continuing to expand over the last decade. And I think it's going to continue to expand into a profit-generating organization that's going to become incredibly meaningful, especially as AI rolls out. Again, I believe that product teams are going to move from engineering heavy to more experience heavy, design heavy. And that's, I think, what's going to happen with HR. Less compliance, which will be handled by the AI connected to the employee handbook, right? And the HR teams becomes more of an intelligence team. So it's a bright day, I believe, for the HR experience in the HR field. And we're just going to become a continuous multi-channel listening capable organization that can help directors, help leadership navigate the ship better and faster. And we can do that through passive listening, things like recognition data to then ask why, and smarter questions in your survey. And this will help you get a 360 view of your culture and be more effective. So hopefully you got a lot out of this talk. Thanks so much for coming. I'd love to see you next time. Next webinar is in 1 week. We're going to talk specifically about recognition. If you have low participation in your recognition program, or maybe you want to give it a new life, your recognition program, please come to that session. I will be going over a number of really great things you can do about that. Our customer success team also has monthly webinars on these topics on how to utilize all the great features and capabilities and learnings that they've had. So if you enjoy this next webinar, we do basically a similar webinar every month. Also, if you end up working with us, we do weekly trainings for your managers and your employees. So a lot of thought leadership is coming out of Recognize. We'd love to connect with you. And one more thing before you go, we do a live demo. So I give a little sneak peek of what Recognize can do in Microsoft Teams. But we do live demos. So please come to that, take a screenshot, or we're going to be sending the presentation later to get the link. And Jess, if you want to put the link in for the signing up for the live demo, this is a group demo, right? So you'll be with my team, David and Jess, and they'll be walking through how to use Recognize. You will enter to win a $100 gift card. If you go out and get a scratch ticket and it said your odds are 1 in 30 to get $100, because we usually have about like 30 people come, 20 or 30 people. That's really good odds. It's incredible odds to get a gift card. But please don't just come for the gift card. Please come because you want to learn more about recognition. And if you do sign up with us after going to that live demo, we'll put $1,000 towards rewards into your account. There is no like use it or lose it or anything like that with our reward system. This is just a credit on top of whatever you end up wanting to spend in the future on rewards with Recognize. So again, we have integrations with Amazon, live events, so sporting events, baseball games, theater performances, swag, gift cards in 150 countries. So please come to that live event. Again, we're having the webinar next week on low participation. If you have a recognition program and you haven't had, and you're having maybe it's slowing down or what have you, maybe the champion has left. We help our customers fix that, and we're going to now show what we do for our customers to the public. So come to that. Thank you so much for coming. It's been really fun for the last 40 minutes together, and And I guess, and to Karen's question, how to flag a private recognition interaction, a private interaction, employer interaction. I am not fully wrapping my head around the question, honestly. So if you want to talk over email, my email, I'll put it in the chat here. Let's have a conversation over email or over the phone. And I'd love to understand more about what do you mean about flagging private employee interactions if they're using organization systems. Depends which one, and we can look into it together. Yeah, thanks, Courtney. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming, and we will connect in the future. Thank you.